Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how I made this card. This is the first of my cards out of the new Occasions catalog. So let me show you a little bit about what we'll be using. This is the stamp set, and it's got this lovely Happy Valentine's Day stamp here, and that's all I'm using from the stamp set. And it's a cling set, and I'm going to do a video about mounting your labels onto your stamps with cling stamps. I'll do that, just a quick one here in the next couple of days to show you how to do that. They're wonderful. You can really put your stickers on and not worry about it. In fact, the hard thing is getting the stamps off of the blocks. And it used to be that they would fall off, so that's no longer a problem with these. So I'm using the Happy Valentine's Day. Then I am using some beautiful designer series called Floral Romance Specialty Designer Series paper, and it is stunningly beautiful. There's this piece, which is regular paper, although it looks like vellum, and it's got a pretty pink and kind of green and white speckled pattern on the back, and there's several pieces of this, and this next one is my favorite out of this suite. Isn't that just gorgeous? And we're going to use a little bit of this paper and a little bit of this paper to make our design for this card. The other paper that's in here is this paper, which is also vellum, and it's like pink lace. I don't know how well you can see that under there. I'm going to grab a piece of white and just kind of stick it under there so you can see. It is like pink lace. Isn't that gorgeous? Just very, very pretty stuff. And then following that is this paper again, and it's paper that has a wood grain design on the back. And so there are 4 papers in here, 3 each of 4 designs. And this lovely leafy pattern, these 2 vellums, and then this larger leaf pattern. Gosh, I'm in love with this stuff. It is just so pretty. So the other thing I'm using from the new catalog, I'm so excited. We have stitched rectangle dies. So I used for this project some of these stitched rectangle framelits. And there are 13 dies in here, so you can do everything from sentiments, a square piece, to panels, and in this case I made a frame. I love frames and I love stitched frames and have not been able to do that. And so let me show you what I used on this card. On this card I used I used the largest frame that we have here for the outside of my card. And then I used, I think it is the 4th one in, nope, the 3rd one in. I'm getting used to these. So I used the largest one, and then if you were counting from the outside, I used 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I used 1 and 4 if you're counting from the outside to make my frame here. And I want to bring this up so you can see it. These stitched rectangles, as you can see, have stitch detail on both the inside and the outside. So they're double stitched. Isn't that wonderful? So what I got on my card here when I did my design is I got stitching on the outside, which would be the inside of the outer one I cut, and this piece here. So I have stitching on both sides. I hope you can see that detail there. It makes the card So professional looking. I just fell in love with it. Anyway, so that's what I used, and they're called, again, rectangle stitched framelit dies, and I'm going to use them and use them and use them until you're all probably very tired of my using them, because I have been asking for these for forever. Then I also used Be Mine framelit dies, and this is all out of that giant monster Valentine suite at the beginning of the new catalog. And this one is fun because it's got a stitched and a scalloped edge. Now, I didn't use that on this card, but what I did use is I used this lovely filigree heart, and that's what I got here. And then on the inside of the card, my decoration was part of what we cut out from here, this die, and then it cuts out jillions of little tiny hearts. And so I had them sweeping up the page. So that is what we're doing. And this is the Be Mine framelets, and then the stitched rectangle dies. Now, what we need to make this card is we need I used a white base, 8.5 by 5.5 scored, and will be folded here at 4 1/4. There you go. And then we need a piece of, I used Blackberry Bliss. Now this paper says that it goes with fresh fig, but I thought the Blackberry Bliss really brought out the purple. So I used Blackberry Bliss, and this piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then a regular sized white panel 4 by 5 1/4. And those are the pieces, along with a piece of this beautiful vellum, and I cut my strip at 3 inches by 5 inches. And so let's see here. There's my pieces. I cut my strip 3 inches by 5 inches, and then I cut a strip of this pretty leaf paper at 1 1/4 inches by 5 inches. Now, so what I did, and let's just get started here. I'm going to show you what I did to prepare this to be die cut. So I, gosh, it's just as pretty on one side as the other. Isn't that amazing? Just gorgeous. Anyway, so what I did was I put a small strip of snail. Let me get my get a silicone mat here. And I put a small strip of snail down one edge on the back side of this leaf paper, and I attached this vellum. Just smooth that out so that my panel was 4 inches. Is that right? Yes, 4 inches. So I set this down, and I did put just a tiny dab of snail on the back just to hold it in place, and set it on my grid paper at the 4-inch line so that I knew that what I got would be straight. Then I took my piece here, my leaves, and I set it over the top of the vellum so that my piece in the end measured 4 inches. Now I'm going to set this down and run that up the paper, and then go ahead and get that centered, and a little bit of glue there that needs to come off. Okay, so there we go. We've got our panel all set to be 4 by 5 inches. Then what I did was I placed my 2 rectangle stitched dies on my paper and I set it here on the paper, and I used a little bit of low-tack tape here, and then I set this one to create my perfect frame in the middle. So there's my first piece set on here so that it would cut perfectly. And then I used a second piece of tape on the inside frame as soon as I had it so that I thought it covered all the way. And so then I went ahead and put this assembly on my die cut machine, and I cut my piece. And what ends up happening then, I've already done mine to save a little bit of time, you get your piece that's already stuck together and the stitching matches across both pieces. And that's exactly what I wanted. Now, I'm just going to lay this down here so that we get an idea of where it goes. These two pieces could be adhered together immediately, so let's just do that. I'm going to lay this piece down on my white card base, and I say it every once in a while. When I use Whisper White for my card bases, I always use the thick Whisper White. And so there's my Blackberry Bliss outline piece. And then I want to do my stamping. So I have my stamp, my Happy Valentine's Day stamp here. And I've got my Blackberry Bliss ink. And I want to stamp my Happy Valentine's Day. And you also need a strip or a piece of scrap of Blackberry Bliss to cut out your heart. And it looks like this piece isn't quite big enough. There's one. So I'm going to set this down on here, and I'll cut this piece and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back here with my piece that I cut out, and I wanted to show you this just because it's so easy. This cuts just beautifully, and I have begun cutting so that the blade is up and underneath, and that's part of the reason I tape it on there. It seems to do, in my opinion, a better job, and you can see it's already starting to come out. And I used my die brush on the back of my piece here. On the foam, and the piece just falls out. And there you can see all of the little pieces are out. It cuts absolutely stunningly beautifully. All right, so let me put that die away and move a little bit of this out of the way. Now, I wanted to have my heart done so that I could place this piece on my card front here and put my heart in place, like roughly here, so I could see exactly where I needed to stamp my Happy Valentine's Day. And it's kind of right up here on this end. So I stamped it a little bit further this way than in the middle because it offsets the hearts being on this end, and it feels a little bit more balanced. But what we want to do is stamp this roughly right up here, and I'm going to use my grid paper here to help me get this straight. And again, it should be right about here. This Blackberry Bliss with this paper is absolutely beautiful. And there we go. Got my sentiment there. My piece is going to fit on here just right. My heart will be down here. That could have been a little bit lower, but I'll raise up this heart a little bit to make it work on this particular card. And then I'll do my other embellishments. So the other piece that I need to cut is my hearts. And this is another piece of scrap that I had in the Blackberry Bliss, and I'll cut that and be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I wanted to show you that when I cut this, the little hearts just come right out of the die. And those that don't come off immediately, just punch right out with your fingers. So you end up with many little hearts for lots of projects. And there you have that die cut, very, very simply done. And then let's see if we can coax this little set of hearts here out of the die, and it comes off just ever so easily. And you don't need to really even poke anything out. So there's that piece cut, and a whole bunch of little hearts that we will need for this project. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is to go ahead, now that this is done, and adhere this onto the front of my Blackberry Bliss piece. Okay, and I get ever so slight a border of the Blackberry Bliss around this white, which is just fine. Then this piece I'm going to put up on dimensionals, and this is one of the things that's beautiful about this particular vellum. Now on the paper, certainly you can put the glue dots down here, not glue dots, dimensionals. And I'm putting more than I might ordinarily because this doesn't have a center, so you want these edges to be supported. And because of the pattern here, you can put dimensionals down and they don't show. It's very exciting. Now you do want to make sure you get your dimensionals down on places that they've got pattern on the vellum. So we're lucky enough that there's quite a bit. And what I'm going to do is use a couple of minis as well. One up in this corner just so I have something anchoring up here, and there's a little pink flower there that'll help me. And then maybe one more large one right down here. And there we go. Now I'll just remove this release paper here. Okay, and I'm going to set this down very gently until I'm happy with its placement right on that card front. That looks pretty good. Okay, so there's my Happy Valentine's Day. Like I said, perhaps a little bit higher up. Then this little heart, I just used a little bit of snail, and I used a dot runner so that I could just get little bits of snail down in different places on the back side of this, and put that into place right here. And I'm going to raise that up a little bit higher than I did on the other one, and just, it's going to be a little bit more raised on one side. I couldn't figure out how to raise this side with, it's not quite enough snail, I don't think. So the heart is mostly flat on the card, and then this panel is the one that's raised. Okay, now I've got some of these cute little hearts, and what I did was I used a few mini dimensionals on the backs of a couple of these hearts to put them into place. And on the smallest one that I put in place, which is like this size, I just put a little bit of snail on the back of it and laid it flat on my card. So there we go. And then I have a couple of rhinestones here, and I put a little bit larger one in the center right here on this heart, and then I put a little rhinestone in the middle of each of these little hearts that I put on the front of the card. And then I scattered a couple around on the card itself, the smaller ones, and oops, and I just randomly put a few around, added another couple of them down here, and maybe one more right in here. So there we go. That is the outside of the card done. Now, this piece here is what got cut out of the center, and I thought that we could use that on the inside of the card, but it seems like it is too large. And let's see exactly what size I cut this to. It looks to be, let's see, where's my, here's a ruler. This looks to be 1.5 inches. So what I did was I just used my trimmer and cut this down to 1.5 inches. So round this way, let's see, 1.5, and I sliced off that piece, saved this little piece because I'm sure I can use it for something else. And it turns out that this inside piece is 1.5 by 4, which fits perfectly on the inside of my card here. So I'm going to use a little bit of snail along the bottom, and I can put snail, I think, freely behind several of these flowers here. And you won't be able to see them. Put that into place, and then I did the same thing with this, just lightly ran across the back of this with a little bit of snail. And then had this piece like running up and away up the side of the card. And then I put some snail on some of these pieces and continued that design up the card. I put one down below here and one right here and a couple more just to make the inside of the card a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to take one of these little tiny ones and put it in there too. There. So there we go. That is our project for the day. Actually, once you get things cut, it's a pretty fast little card. I'm going to save those little hearts because I'm sure I can use them for something else. And so here is my original, and here is the one that we made together. And I think you're going to love the die set and the stamp set for the Valentine's card. And this isn't traditional red Valentine's color, but I really wanted to use both the stitched rectangles. I wanted to use these dies, and I desperately wanted to use this paper, and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. So that's it for me today. Now you'll be able to order these things on my website, which is www.lbedinger@stampinup.net, or there's a place to hit shop now or shop with me on my blog at inkandingenuity.com. And the other thing I wanted to announce today is that I will be doing a paper share out of the catalog, and there are 7 papers out of the catalog that I will be doing a paper share on. And you can go on to my blog, and all of the details are listed in a post there. But basically the dates are, you have until January 6th to let me know whether or not you want to be involved in the paper share. And there's a little bonus with my paper share this year. Send me an email saying you want to be included in the paper share. And then on the 7th, I will send you a PayPal invoice for $25 for the paper share plus $6.95 for shipping. And then I'll place my order on the next day. You have until the 10th to pay me. And once you pay me for your part of the paper share, on the 11th I'll order. And as soon as I get the papers, barring any holdups because of shortages or anything, I will get that cut, labeled, and put in the mail to you with a little bonus paper, some of the beautiful butterfly paper that's in the Celebration catalog. So that's it for me today. The prize draw for January is, I'm going to do another $50 shopping spree on me out of the Occasions catalog. There's so many pretty things. I know you won't. You'll have a long wish list, and I think I'm going to do that again for this time. So in a few days, I'll draw my December person who's going to get a $50 shopping spree out of that catalog, and then the same thing for the month of January. So thanks again so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, or you could join my team. And the join offer in January is spectacular. It's $175 worth of product for $99. Plus you have the option of getting the craft and carry tote, which is the only way you can get it, for $50. So that's it for me. I'll be back soon with more cards and more projects. Bye.